Imagine a single surah that doesn't just speak to you, it transforms you. Imagine reading it, not as a recitation, but as a dialogue between your soul and the divine. Ibn Arabi said that every verse is alive, and when a heart listens deeply, the words begin to unveil the unseen within. For 7 days you return to this surah, morning, night, in silence. And slowly something begins to shift. The noise of the world fades, and the presence of something greater begins to rise within you. This is not about repetition, it's about remembrance. And what happens in these 7 days is not magic, it's awakening. By the second day, something begins to shift. It may be subtle, a quiet thought, a strange calm, a memory surfacing without reason, but it is there. The surah has begun to speak to you, not through sound or intellect, but through reflection. Ibn Arabi described the Qur'an as a mirror, and he said that whoever looks into it with sincerity will not merely see verses, they will see themselves. The Qur'an, in truth, is not an external text. It is a reflection of the inner world. When you recite it with attention, it reveals what you carry within. On the second day, your task is not to search for meaning, but to observe your own reflection as the words flow through you. Every verse you recite becomes a light shining upon your inner landscape. It reveals what has been hidden, not to shame or frighten you, but to awaken you. Ibn Arabi taught that truth is never far. It is veiled only by the dust of forgetfulness. Each recitation is a gentle act of cleaning that mirror. As you continue to read, you begin to notice that certain verses draw you in more than others. They feel personal, almost as if they were written for you. That is no accident. The Qur'an meets every heart in the language it can understand. When you reach this stage, something beautiful happens. You begin to recognize that your relationship with the surah is alive. The words do not remain the same each time you read them. One verse that felt ordinary yesterday suddenly feels profound today. Another verse that seemed irrelevant now feels like it was waiting for you. This is what Ibn Arabi meant when he said that every verse contains infinite worlds. The meaning you receive depends on the state of your heart, and as your heart changes, the Qur'an reveals a new face to you. The second day is also when resistance may appear. You may feel distracted, restless, or doubtful. You might ask yourself, what am I supposed to feel? Why am I doing this? But this too is part of the mirror. The Qur'an shows you your impatience, your need for control, your longing for immediate reward. Do not turn away. Ibn Arabi would tell you that seeing your own restlessness is itself a gift, because awareness is the first step toward purification. When you notice the noise inside, you have already begun to step outside of it. Take a moment during your recitation to pause. After each verse, let the sound fade and listen to what remains in the silence. Sometimes a verse will echo, not in your mind, but in your emotions. You might feel warmth or ache or even discomfort. That is the heart responding. Ibn Arabi said that the heart is the true organ of knowledge. It knows before the mind understands. So on this second day, practice reading with both your heart and your ears. Let the words enter you, not just pass through you. You may also notice that certain memories surface, moments of joy, pain, guilt, or longing. Do not dismiss them. The surah is not trying to distract you. It is guiding you inward. Every memory that arises under the light of recitation is an invitation to healing. Ibn Arabi taught that divine revelation does not only inform, it transforms. When the Qur'an confronts you with your past, it does so not to burden you, but to release what you have not yet faced. This is how divine mercy works. It shows you your wounds only to help you cleanse them. By the middle of the second day, you may begin to sense a gentle awareness following you beyond the recitation. You might find yourself remembering a verse while walking, or thinking about its meaning while doing something ordinary. This is not coincidence. It is the beginning of companionship. The surah is not something you read and leave behind. It begins to travel with you, to walk beside you in your thoughts. Ibn Arabi wrote that the one who truly listens to the Qur'an carries its echo in every heartbeat. The words become alive within you, like a constant whisper of remembrance. The more you recite, the clearer the mirror becomes. And with that clarity, you might see both beauty and imperfection. You may feel joy in your connection one moment and sadness the next. This fluctuation is natural. Ibn Arabi compared the heart to the moon. It waxes and wanes, but always reflects the light of the sun. What matters is not how bright your reflection is today, but that you keep turning toward the light. Every moment of sincerity adds another layer of polish to the mirror of your soul. Do not rush to interpret everything. There are meanings that can only be understood through patience. Ibn Arabi said that divine knowledge reveals itself in degrees as the soul becomes ready to receive it. If the verses feel distant today, they will feel closer tomorrow. If they feel confusing, they will one day feel like home. What you are experiencing now is the heart learning to listen in a new way. It is unlearning the habit of hearing only with the mind. As the day draws to a close, spend a few moments in reflection. Ask yourself, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What did this surah show me about myself today? Did it reveal peace or restlessness, love or fear, hope or uncertainty? Whatever the answer, know that this is your starting point. Ibn Arabi would remind you that God reveals himself to each person according to their capacity. What you see in the mirror of the Qur'an is what you are ready to see, and even if all you see is fog, it means the light is already there, waiting to be uncovered. By the end of the second day, you will begin to understand something profound. The surah is not trying to change your outer world. It is refining your inner one. You are learning to look at yourself through divine eyes, to see both your flaws and your beauty as parts of a single truth. Ibn Arabi said that when the heart becomes a polished mirror, it reflects nothing but the face of the real. That is where you are heading. The second day is not about perfection or revelation. It is about honesty. It is the moment when you begin to see yourself as you are and to love what you find, because you finally see it in the light of the Qur'an. This is the stage where reading turns into reflection, and reflection into awakening. The surah continues its quiet work, and you begin to realize that what you are seeking in the verses was always waiting within you. By the third day, something begins to bloom within you quietly, like dawn breaking after a long night. The verses that once sounded familiar begin to feel new, as if they are whispering a meaning that was always there but only now being heard. This is the day when the Qur'an begins to speak through you, not just to you. Ibn Arabi described this as the awakening of divine understanding, the moment when the heart starts to read in light instead of ink. On the first day, you open the door with intention. On the second, you face the mirror of your soul. Now on the third day, you begin to see what Ibn Arabi called mana al-haqiqa, the truth of meaning. The difference between words and meanings, he said, is like the difference between shadow and sunlight. The letters and sounds are only the forms through which divine light travels. The real message lies behind them, alive, luminous, eternal. As you recite today, slow down even more. Do not rush to finish. Every verse is a world of its own. Ibn Arabi said that a single word of the Qur'an can contain infinite universes of meaning, but they are not opened by the tongue. They are opened by presence. When you read a verse, pause, feel it, let it sink beneath the surface of your thoughts. Ask yourself, not as an intellectual exercise, but as a prayer, what is this verse asking of me right now? On this day, your connection with the surah becomes deeper, more intimate. You begin to sense that the Qur'an is alive, that it is not something you hold in your hands, but something that holds you. Its meaning expands and contracts, depending on your state. If you are restless, the verses calm you. If you are burdened, they lift you. If you are lost, they guide you back to yourself. This is how divine speech interacts with the human heart. It becomes precisely what you need, exactly when you need it. You may find yourself suddenly understanding a verse that confused you before. It might not even be a logical understanding. It feels more like recognition, as if the words were reminding you of something you already knew but had forgotten. Ibn Arabi explained that real knowledge is not acquired, it is remembered. The Quran does not teach you something new. It unveils what your soul already carries from before time. Every insight that arises is a remembrance of your original knowing, the knowing that existed when your soul answered the question, "Am I not your Lord?" As you continue your recitation, notice how your perception of meaning begins to move beyond words. You begin to feel the energy of each verse, the way it fills the air, the way it settles in your chest, the way it leaves silence vibrating after it ends. Ibn Arabi taught that divine meaning cannot be captured in language. It can only be experienced. That is why the Quran speaks to both intellect and intuition. The mind understands its message, but the heart feels its truth. This is also the day when you start to see connections. Verses that once seemed separate now appear to flow into one another. A theme begins to emerge, perhaps of mercy, of patience, of faith, of trust. Ibn Arabi often wrote that meaning reveals itself in patterns, and those patterns reflect the order of divine wisdom. When you notice these threads, you are beginning to see with what he called basira, the inner vision of the heart. It is not about analysis, it is about witnessing. At this stage, you may also encounter wonder. You might pause after a verse and simply feel awe. You might find yourself speechless, your heart full, but your words gone. Ibn Arabi would call this hayra, the sacred bewilderment that arises when the limited mind stands before infinite truth. Do not try to escape it. Stay in that silence. It is in those moments of wordless awe that the Quran does its deepest work. For when the mind is quiet, the light of meaning enters freely. But light does not always come softly. Sometimes it reveals truths that are hard to face. You may read a verse that confronts you, a command, a warning, a reminder of accountability, and feel discomfort. This is not punishment, it is refinement. Ibn Arabi said that divine love sometimes appears as correction because it wants to return the heart to balance. When a verse unsettles you, ask yourself why. Often the verse is pointing to something you have ignored, a place within you that still needs healing. As the day progresses, you may begin to notice that your view of life outside the Quran is also changing. The same light that shines through the Surah begins to illuminate your perception of the world. You look at ordinary things, trees, faces, sky, and sense the same presence that you feel when you recite. Ibn Arabi wrote that when divine meaning enters the heart, everything becomes a verse. The universe itself becomes a scripture written in light. By evening, your recitation feels different. You are no longer trying to reach the surah. It feels as though the surah is reaching out to you. The distance between reader and revelation begins to dissolve. You realize that meaning is not something you extract, it is something you surrender to. Ibn Arabi compared it to standing before the sea. You can try to measure it, or you can step in and let it surround you. Before you close the Quran tonight, sit in stillness once more. Reflect on what you discovered, not just in the verses, but within yourself. Did a certain line stay with you? Did something feel clearer, softer, or more alive? Those are signs that the light of meaning has begun to move within you. You may not yet grasp it fully, but it is working quietly, steadily. Ibn Arabi said that the one who reads with presence is like a lamp being lit by the flame of divine wisdom. Each recitation adds more light, and with each new layer of light, you see more clearly, not only the words before you, but the life around you. This is what it means to truly understand. By the end of the third day, you begin to realize that revelation is not a moment frozen in time. It is a continuous unfolding. The Qur'an was not revealed once. It is being revealed again and again, every time a heart is ready to receive it. And now that revelation is happening in you. This is the light of meaning. Not an idea, but an awakening. Not something you read, but something that begins to live inside you. The surah is no longer just a collection of verses. It has become a voice, a mirror, and a guide. You entered it through words, but now you begin to walk through its light. By the fourth day, the surah has begun to move within you. The words no longer sit on the page. They echo through your thoughts, shape your emotions, and stir something deep that you might not yet be able to name. This is the stage Ibn Arabi described as Tazkiyah al-Nafs, the purification of the self. It is the moment when divine light, now awakened in the heart, begins to wash through the hidden chambers of the soul. It is gentle, but it is also powerful, and sometimes it feels like being undone. When you began this journey, you may have thought of the Qur'an as a book you were reading, but now you start to realize that it is reading you. Every verse reaches into your being, like water flowing into cracks, loosening what has hardened over time, old habits, grudges, wounds you've buried under years of noise. Ibn Arabi wrote that the divine word does not merely inform, it transforms. It does not impose meaning from outside. It awakens truth from within. The verses become a mirror and a medicine, showing you both the wound and the cure. On this day, the recitation may bring unexpected emotions. You may feel a sudden sadness or an unexplainable tenderness. You may find tears forming even if you do not know why. This is not weakness. It is release. Ibn Arabi said that when divine remembrance touches the heart, it begins to dissolve the layers that kept it veiled. What you are feeling is not sorrow. It is the melting away of what no longer serves you. The soul is remembering its origin. It is returning to clarity. The process of cleansing is rarely comfortable. When light enters a dark room, it reveals the dust. You begin to notice your inner patterns more clearly, the impatience, the pride, the hidden fears. At first, this might trouble you. You might think you are moving backward instead of forward. But this recognition is progress. Ibn Arabi reminded seekers that facing the self honestly is the first act of purification. The Qur'an does not condemn, it exposes so that what is false may fall away. As you continue to recite, imagine the surah as rain. Each verse is a drop descending from the unseen, washing the heart of the residue it has gathered from the world. The sound itself has power. Its rhythm clears confusion, its tone softens hardness, its pauses invite stillness. Ibn Arabi believed that sound and spirit are intimately connected. The vibration of divine speech realigns what has been thrown off balance. Even if your mind drifts, the act of recitation itself continues to polish the inner mirror. This is the day to allow yourself to be honest. Sit with the verses that confront you. Perhaps they remind you of something you have avoided, a responsibility, a forgiveness unoffered, a truth unspoken. Do not turn away. The surah is not shaming you. It is guiding you back to alignment. Ibn Arabi wrote that purification is not about erasing what you are. It is about removing what is not truly you. The divine essence within you is already pure. The journey is simply to uncover it. In this stage, you might also feel lighter. The same verses that once felt like correction now feel like comfort. You realize that divine mercy is present even in rebuke, because it awakens you from forgetfulness. Ibn Arabi said that the real never withholds, even what appears as pain, is a form of love leading the soul back to remembrance. When you read a verse that touches your heart sharply, pause and breathe. Ask, what is this trying to cleanse within me? You will often find that the answer is not punishment but healing. During your day, the cleansing continues in subtle ways. You may feel drawn to stillness, to reflection, to prayer beyond obligation. You might sense a quiet humility rising in you, the kind that no longer needs to prove or defend. Ibn Arabi taught that a purified heart becomes like clear water. It reflects truth without distortion. When the self is cleaned of ego, it becomes a vessel for divine presence, and that presence begins to guide you naturally, without struggle. You might also begin to notice that the world around you feels different. Colors seem brighter, conversations gentler, even the ordinary feels sacred. This is not imagination. When the heart is purified, perception itself is purified. Ibn Arabi said that a heart washed by remembrance begins to see the real in everything. The same light that shines through the verses of the Qur'an begins to shine through creation. What was once mundane becomes meaningful. But remember, purification is a process, not a single moment. You may have days when you feel clear, and others when you feel clouded again. Do not be discouraged. The heart, like the sky, sometimes gathers clouds, but the light remains behind them. Ibn Arabi compared the journey of the soul to the rhythm of the ocean. Waves rise and fall, but the tide always moves toward the shore. Every return to the Surah, every act of remembrance, every sincere breath moves you closer to clarity. By evening, when you finish your recitation, sit quietly. Notice the space within you. It may feel emptier than before, but this emptiness is sacred. It is not a void. It is the room you've made for truth. Ibn Arabi said that when the self is emptied of what is false, it becomes filled with light. The less you carry, the more you can receive. As the fourth day ends, recognize how far you have come. You began this journey seeking understanding, and now you are being reshaped by it. The Surah has become a living current, cleansing and renewing you from within. You might not see dramatic changes on the surface, but beneath it, your heart is becoming softer, clearer, and more receptive. This is the day of purification, the quiet labor of the soul that prepares it for union. Ibn Arabi wrote that the heart cannot reflect divine light until it is clean of its own images. Today, that cleaning has begun. Every tear, every moment of reflection, every verse that stirred something deep, these are signs that the water of truth is flowing through you. So let it flow. Do not resist the cleansing. The one who surrenders to the washing of the heart does not lose anything worth keeping. They lose only the dust that covered the treasure within. And by the time the seventh day comes, you will see that what has been washed away was never truly part of you. It was only what stood between you and the light that was always there. By the fifth day, something subtle but unmistakable begins to awaken in you, a quiet companionship, an unseen nearness. You start to feel that you are not reading the Surah alone. There is a presence within the words that begins to move through you, surrounding you like air. Ibn Arabi called this Hudur al-Haq, the presence of the real. It is not a presence that can be touched or seen, but one that can be felt in the spaces between your thoughts, in the stillness after a verse, in the deep calm that has no explanation. This is the stage where remembrance transforms into intimacy. You are no longer only a reader or a reciter. You have become a listener. The Surah now speaks from within you, and its meanings arise like waves from the ocean of your heart. Ibn Arabi said that when the seeker's heart becomes still, the divine begins to speak through it. This stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the awareness beneath all movement. It is the knowing that the one you seek is not distant. He is nearer than near, closer than breath. At this point in your journey, you may feel an unusual peace, a quiet joy that doesn't come from reason. It may appear suddenly while you recite, or in an ordinary moment afterward, while walking, sitting, or even waiting in silence. The surah has begun to leave the page. It has entered your being. Ibn Arabi taught that when divine words truly enter a heart, they remain there as light. That light doesn't fade when the recitation ends. It lingers, it illuminates, it whispers. The presence of the divine is not a vision to be seen or a voice to be heard. It is a recognition that has no form. It is the sudden awareness that the boundary between you and the verse is dissolving. You begin to realize that the same force that revealed the Qur'an to the Prophet is revealing it now to your heart. Ibn Arabi wrote that revelation is not an event trapped in history. It is an eternal current that flows through every receptive heart. To experience it is to taste what he called the ever-renewed creation, the truth that every moment God is revealing himself anew. On this fifth day, the surah feels alive in your chest. When you recite, you feel the words vibrating, not just in your voice, but in your whole being. It is as though each verse is breathing you. The recitation becomes prayer, and prayer becomes communion. Ibn Arabi said that in the highest states, the servant no longer speaks to God nor hears from God. There is only the speech of God through the servant. This is not union by distance overcome, but by illusion removed. The presence was always there, only your awareness has changed. At times you may feel overcome by stillness. You read a verse and suddenly can't continue. You pause, not because you are tired, but because the moment feels full. The air feels charged with meaning, and the silence itself feels like revelation. Do not rush through that. That silence is the message. Ibn Arabi said that when the real draws near, words lose their function. In that silence, the heart speaks in its own language, the language of being. You might also begin to feel gratitude rise without cause. Gratitude not for something happening to you, but for the simple fact of being. Ibn Arabi described this as the state of shuhud, witnessing, to witness. The real is to see divine beauty reflected in everything, including yourself. You begin to feel that even your struggles were part of this unfolding, that even your pain had meaning. What once seemed random now feels intentional, as if every moment has been leading you here, to this awareness of presence. Sometimes you will notice that ordinary things begin to feel sacred. The sound of the wind, the rhythm of footsteps, the smile of a stranger, all seem to carry the same resonance as the Qur'an itself. This is not imagination, it is perception refined by remembrance. Ibn Arabi said that once the heart recognizes the divine within revelation, it begins to recognize him everywhere. The world becomes a text, and every moment a verse. You realize that you were never separate from him, not in the mosque, not in the street, not in solitude. The same light that fills the surah fills creation. Yet, this awareness is delicate. It must be held gently, not grasped. If you try to cling to it, it slips away because the presence cannot be owned. It can only be witnessed. Ibn Arabi taught that the seeker must remain humble in these moments, remembering that all perception is a gift. To mistake it for achievement is to veil oneself again. So stay soft. Let all guide you more than certainty. The more you surrender, the clearer the presence becomes. There may also be moments of fear. You may feel the immensity of this nearness and wonder if you are worthy of it. Ibn Arabi would tell you that this is the last veil, the illusion of separation through unworthiness. The presence does not come because you deserve it. It comes because it is never left to realize, that is to finally rest. As the day unfolds, you might find that even your prayers change. They become quieter, more inward. You no longer speak to the divine as if he were elsewhere. You speak within the silence that holds both question and answer. Ibn Arabi said that when the lover recognizes the beloved within, all seeking ends and remembrance becomes the natural breath of the soul. This is the stage where faith turns into intimacy and worship becomes love. Before you close your Qur'an tonight, sit in stillness, feel the air around you, the rhythm of your breathing, the beating of your heart. All of these are signs of the presence. Ibn Arabi wrote that the real manifests in every pulse of existence. You need not go anywhere to find him. You only need to notice. Let the awareness of this nearness fill you completely. Let it humble you, soften you, silence you. By the fifth day, you are no longer walking toward God. You are walking with him. The Surah has become a bridge between heaven and heart, and every verse is a step across it. You may not see the destination yet, but you can feel the warmth of his light with every breath. This is the presence of the divine, not something to seek, but something to remember. And once remembered, it never truly leaves you again. By the sixth day, something extraordinary begins to unfold. What once felt like a personal journey now begins to spill outward, like a river breaking its banks. The light that entered your heart through the Surah is no longer confined within you. It begins to touch how you see, how you speak, how you live. Ibn Arabi called this stage Inshira al-Sadr, the expansion of the chest, or the widening of the heart. It is the moment when the soul, having been cleansed and filled with divine presence, begins to overflow with understanding, compassion, and serenity. This expansion is not loud or dramatic. It is gentle, like a sunrise that fills the horizon inch by inch. You wake up with a sense of ease that has no cause. The same verses you recited yesterday now feel larger, as if their meanings have multiplied overnight. Even silence feels full. Every pause, every breath carries a quiet sweetness. Ibn Arabi wrote that when the heart expands, it becomes a mirror vast enough to reflect the whole world without breaking. You begin to feel that vastness within yourself, an openness that can hold both joy and sorrow, peace and confusion, without being disturbed. The sixth day is about seeing through the lens of the expanded heart. You begin to perceive the divine patterns woven into everything around you. What once felt random now appears meaningful. You look at the same world, but through softer eyes. Ibn Arabi said that the one whose heart has expanded sees the real in all forms. Every event, every encounter, every face becomes a verse of revelation. Even those who test your patience become teachers. Even moments of difficulty begin to reveal their mercy. This stage is marked by a new kind of clarity, not the clarity of intellect, but of perception. The Qur'an begins to unfold itself not only in recitation, but in life. You find its rhythm in your conversations, its gentleness in your acts of kindness, its truth in your challenges. The heart becomes an interpreter of reality, and everything you encounter starts to echo the same message. There is nothing but the one. Ibn Arabi said that when the heart expands, it stops dividing the world into sacred and ordinary, because all things become signs pointing to the same source. You may notice a shift in your emotions as well. Anger softens more quickly. Forgiveness comes easier. Gratitude feels natural. This is not because you are forcing yourself to be good, but because the heart, once purified, naturally returns to its original state, tranquility. Ibn Arabi described this as the heart's natural rhythm: to love, to forgive, to give, to understand. You begin to experience peace, not as something you pursue, but as something that arises naturally when the walls around your soul start to fall. Sometimes during this stage, the expansion feels overwhelming. You may feel waves of emotion, love, awe, tenderness, without knowing why. You may feel deeply connected to people, to nature, even to moments of silence. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness. Ibn Arabi taught that the heart of the knower becomes wide enough to contain the whole universe, because it contains the reflection of the divine. You begin to understand that compassion is not something you give, it is something you are. There may also be moments of tension, as if the boundaries of your old self are stretching. The habits and fears that once defined you begin to lose their grip, but part of you may resist letting them go. This is natural. Growth always comes with a bit of ache. Ibn Arabi often compared spiritual expansion to the opening of a flower. It cannot happen without pressure, without the gentle breaking of what once was closed. Trust this unfolding. The heart was never meant to stay small. As you continue your recitation today, let each verse feel like breath entering a lung too long deprived of air. Feel it widening you, softening you, grounding you. The Quran is not only a revelation to be read, it is a revelation to be lived. Ibn Arabi said that when the heart expands, the seeker stops reciting from the tongue and begins to recite from being. Every act becomes remembrance. Every breath becomes dhikr. You are no longer trying to bring the divine into your life. You begin to realize that your life is already happening within the divine. You may find yourself moved to gratitude, deep, wordless gratitude. Gratitude not only for blessings, but for the lessons, for the patience you learned through pain, for the guidance that brought you here. Ibn Arabi said that gratitude is the fragrance of the expanded heart. It rises naturally, like scent from a flower that has been touched by sunlight. When you feel this gratitude, let it wash through you, let it fill every corner of your being. This is how the heart continues to expand, through acknowledgement, through appreciation, through love. Throughout this day, carry the surah with you not as a recitation, but as a presence. Notice how it shapes your interactions. You might find yourself listening more deeply to others, forgiving more quickly, smiling more easily. This is not effort, it is alignment. The divine rhythm you have been reciting for 6 days now pulses through your actions. Ibn Arabi said that when the heart aligns with the real, the outer life begins to mirror the inner life. The surah is no longer only within your prayers, it begins to live through your presence in the world. As the day comes to an end, sit again in stillness. Reflect on what has changed since you began this journey. You may not be able to describe it, but you can feel it. An inner spaciousness, a calm strength, a peace that is not fragile but full. This is the expansion Ibn Arabi spoke of. The point where the heart, once confined by self, becomes a vessel for the infinite. The more it opens, the more it can hold. The more it holds, the more it shines. By the 6th day, you have begun to see that the surah was never meant to remain confined to the pages of a book. It was always meant to become a way of seeing, a way of being. You have entered its world, and it has entered yours. The boundaries between worship and life, between prayer and action, between heart and world are fading. This is not the end. It is preparation for what comes next. The expanded heart is the bridge between knowing and being. You are beginning to live from the center of remembrance, where every moment feels guided, every breath sacred. And tomorrow, as you step into the final day, you will understand what Ibn Arabi meant when he said, "The journey ends not when you find God, but when you realize you never left him." By the 7th day, the journey no longer feels like a practice. It feels like returning home. The surah that once seemed like a text before you has become a rhythm within you. Its sound lives in your breath. Its meanings flow through your thoughts. Its peace sits quietly beneath every moment. What began as recitation has become remembrance. What began as seeking has become finding. Ibn Arabi called this Ittihad al-Ma'rifah, the union of knowing, not a merging of self and divine, but the realization that there was never distance to begin with. The seventh day is a day of arrival, but it is not an arrival into somewhere new. It is an awakening into what has always been. The Qur'an was never outside of you. It was speaking from within you all along. The verses that once felt like guidance from beyond now feel like memories, echoes of a truth your soul has always known. Ibn Arabi taught that divine knowledge is not acquired, it is remembered. When the seeker finally stops striving to grasp the truth, they discover they were already within it. You begin this day differently. You no longer open the Qur'an looking for meaning. You open it to witness what is already alive inside you. The surah feels familiar now, almost like a friend. You recite not with effort, but with ease. The pauses between the verses feel as sacred as the verses themselves. There is no hurry, no anxiety about feeling something, no need for proof. You know that every recitation plants a seed, every silence waters it, and every breath lets it grow. This final stage is not about emotional intensity. It is about quiet certainty, the kind of certainty that does not shout, but simply is. Ibn Arabi said that when the heart reaches this stage, faith is no longer belief, it is recognition. You no longer think about God as something beyond you. You see God in everything, in the kindness of a stranger, in the patience of a test, in the stillness of prayer, even in your own breath. The entire world becomes a single verse, recited by the real. During this day, you may feel as though your senses are more alive than ever. The world feels brighter, not because it has changed, but because your sight has. You begin to perceive the unity behind all things. What you once called mine and yours begins to blur. You realize that the love you feel for others, the peace you feel in worship, and the beauty you see in creation all spring from the same source. Ibn Arabi described this as wadat al-wuj, the unity of being. It does not mean everything is God, but that nothing exists outside his presence. Every leaf, every heartbeat, every atom is participating in the same act of divine expression. You may notice that prayer feels different now. It no longer feels like reaching upward. It feels like turning inward. When you bow, you feel as though you are bowing not towards something distant, but toward the sacred within yourself, within every being, within all existence. Ibn Arabi said that the one who truly knows God prays in every moment, because life itself becomes prayer. Every action becomes an extension of gratitude. Every breath becomes an act of remembrance. And in this realization, peace descends. Not the fleeting peace that depends on comfort or silence, but the deep peace that exists even in movement, even in noise. It is the peace of alignment, the peace of a heart that no longer resists what is, because it finally sees what Ibn Arabi called the face of the real in all directions. You begin to understand that every event in your life, every joy, every sorrow, was never outside of divine wisdom. Every verse you read was pointing you back here, to this simple, clear awareness. The union of knowing is not the end of learning. It is the beginning of understanding that there is no end. Each verse, no matter how many times you read it, continues to reveal something new. Each recitation feels like a first encounter. Ibn Arabi said that divine knowledge is endless because the divine is infinite. Every unveiling reveals another veil of beauty. You realize now that the journey is not about arriving, but about continuing to walk in awareness. As you recite the surah today, notice how it flows differently. You are no longer trying to understand. You are allowing it to express itself through you. The boundary between speaker and listener, between seeker and sought, fades. The surah reads itself in your voice. You realize you are not simply remembering God. You are being remembered by Him. Ibn Arabi said that when the servant remembers the real, it is because the real has already remembered the servant. Every moment of remembrance was always a response to a divine call that came first. Toward evening, as you close the Qur'an for the 7th time, there is no sense of completion, only gratitude. Gratitude for the journey, for the days of struggle and clarity, for the times you felt nothing, and for the moments that overflowed with meaning. You understand now that every stage, the intention, the reflection, the cleansing, the presence, the expansion, was necessary to arrive here. The surah was not changing you, it was revealing you. Ibn Arabi taught that the ultimate realization is simplicity itself. The seeker spends a lifetime searching for what was never lost. When the heart finally becomes still, it sees that the beloved it was longing for was always closer than the longing itself. That is the union of knowing, not that you have found God, but that you finally recognize you never left Him. So on this 7th day, do not try to capture the experience. Let it breathe. Let it live within you. Let your life become the continuation of this surah. Your actions, the verses. Your silence, the spaces between them. You are no longer just a reader of revelation. You have become a living reflection of it. And when you look at the world tomorrow, remember this truth Ibn Arabi left for all who seek. The end of the journey is the return to where you began. Only now, you see it for the first time. This is the 7th day, the day of remembrance, the day of return, the day when knowing becomes being, and being becomes peace. And now the 7 days come to their quiet close. You began this journey, seeking something, a sign, a change, perhaps even a miracle. But what you discovered was far greater than what you expected. You found that the miracle was not in the sky or the words alone, it was within you. The surah did not give you something new. It revealed what had always been there, waiting beneath the noise of the world. The light of remembrance, the stillness of the heart, the nearness of the divine. Ibn Arabi wrote that every path of truth leads not outward, but inward. The destination is not a place, but a state of awareness. Through these 7 days, you have walked that path, one verse, one breath, one unveiling at a time. You began as a reader, and now you stand as a witness. The Qur'an that once seemed external has become a living presence within you. Its rhythm has merged with your heartbeat, its wisdom with your silence. The call to begin was a call to sincerity. The mirror of the heart taught you to see yourself as you are. The light of meaning showed you that revelation is alive. The cleansing of the soul freed you from heaviness. The presence of the divine brought you intimacy beyond words. The expansion of the heart opened your vision to all creation. And finally, the union of knowing brought you home to the realization that you were never apart from the one you sought. You may wonder what to do now that the 7 days are complete. The answer, Ibn Arabi would say, is simple. Continue. Do not treat these days as an end, but as the beginning of a new way of living. Let the surah remain your companion, not as a task, but as a presence. Read it when your heart is heavy, and let it remind you of the peace you touched. Read it when you feel lost, and let it remind you that you have already been found. The purpose of these 7 days was not to transform you into something else, but to help you remember who you truly are. A soul that carries divine light, a being designed for remembrance. The Qur'an is not a book you visit. It is a home you return to, and once you have entered it with sincerity, it never truly lets you go. So carry this awareness into the world. Walk gently, speak truthfully, love generously. Let your life itself become a verse, one that reflects the mercy, wisdom, and beauty you have witnessed. Ibn Arabi said that when the seeker reaches the end of the path, they find the real shining in every face. You will know you have reached that state, when even the smallest moment feels sacred. The surah you read for 7 days has become part of you now. Its sound lingers in your breath, its meaning in your heart, its peace in your presence. You no longer need to chase the divine. You are surrounded by it, and in that awareness lies the secret Ibn Arabi spoke of, the secret that cannot be written or spoken, only lived, that God is not far, that the path is not long, that the return has already begun. This is the closing, but it is not the end. Every recitation from now on is a continuation of the same story, the endless dialogue between the soul and its source. You began by reading a surah, but the truth is, the surah has been reading you all along, and in that realization, you are no longer a seeker. You are found. You are home.